So, hello everyone. Thank you for making the time to join the investor webinar for the Water and Energy for Food Grand Challenge. We're excited to have you on the call, and we look forward to engaging with you in the future. So, a few housekeeping points before we get started. Please keep your microphones on mute. In case you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat box, and we shall address them at the end, of the webinar. Also note that, this webinar is being recorded, and that it will be posted on the We4F website for future references. Right. So now that we've gotten the two through to the two housekeeping notes, allow me to introduce the brokering unit team, which is essentially their investment facilitation team. So my name is Auleli Makondo. I am the investment facilitator for the Southern and Central Africa region, regional hub. And the brokering unit is facilitated by Open Capital Advisors. So Open Capital Advisors is a financial advisory and management consulting firm focused on advancing African economies. We've worked in over 25 countries in sub-Saharan Africa, and we currently have offices in Kenya, Nigeria, Uganda, and Zambia. Our clients generally fall into four broad categories. So these are small and medium enterprises, large corporations, investors, and development partners. And we do offer a broad range of services to these clients. So for the SMEs, we provide technical support to sort of help establish their operations, raise capital, and support their growth strategies. For corporations, our support includes providing global expertise and local understanding on strategy. For our investors, and that is why we're here, we support them with pipeline sourcing, due diligence, portfolio management, and fund structuring. And finally, for development partners, we assist with ecosystem building, value chain analysis, and market research. So over the last 10 years, Open Capital has grown to over 140 professionals. We've worked on over 1,000 engagements, and we've raised over $1 billion, for businesses on the African continent. So that is just a quick overview of who we are as Open Capital. And I'll let my colleague Chris, who is a principal at Open Capital, introduce himself before we dive into the presentation. All right, Chris.
Good afternoon, everyone. As Auleli mentioned, my name is Chris Mwema, and I'm a principal at Open Capital. And we're very excited to be on this call with you today to present the We4F program, in particular the brokering unit. So just to add some more color onto what Auleli mentioned about Open Capital, the mission when Open Capital was founded was to advance African economies by supporting small and medium-sized enterprises in Africa across setting the strategy as well as raising capital. And as cited by the figures that Auleli mentioned, we have done that extremely well over the last 10 years, raising over $1 billion. As for my personal background, I have worked in management consulting as well as investment banking, helping all manner of companies from multi-billion-dollar multinationals to small, less than $1 million in revenue companies in sub-Saharan Africa. So I can safely say that I've seen most scenarios when it comes to investing, and in particular investing in Africa. So without much further ado, I'll hand it over back to Auleli so we can get into the presentation and outline how the brokering unit can help investors and innovators get together.
Great. Thank you, Chris, for that introduction. So for our agenda today, we plan to talk through three broad, topics. First, I will outline why we're here and what we're looking to get from this webinar by giving a short overview of what the water, and energy for food program is, and briefly talk about the role that the brokering unit plays in this program. Then Chris will talk about how the brokering unit sort of fits into the program in more detail, and how you as an investor or a partner can get involved, to support the innovators to really scale and achieve impact. Chris will also talk about the type of investors we're sort of looking to attract, and how the brokering unit will work with, the interested and onboarded investors in deploying capital into these businesses. And then finally, I will wrap up with a quick, discussion of the application process. So here I'll cover things like the application process, the timelines, and the considerations we'll be making when evaluating your applications. So to sum up, our goal for today is really to help you investors learn more about the We4F program, and address any questions that you may have, and hopefully get you excited about the possibilities that exist, for investors within the program. Moving on to the next slide. So what is the We4F program? So the We4F program is a multi-donor program, founded by several donor partners. These include the European Union, USAID, CEDA, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs for the Netherlands, and many other donor partners. So the program is a global program, and we do have several hubs in different regions. Hubs like MENA, South and Southeast Asia, and we particularly come from the Southern and Central Africa regional hub. So broadly speaking, the program aims to increase the social and environmental impact, of organizations and stakeholders, operating in the food and water nexus. So these are organizations producing, innovative products or providing services that allow farmers and, other stakeholders in the food value chain, to produce more food while using water and energy more efficiently. And this support that the program sort of offers to both innovators and to innovators particularly, takes the shape of technical assistance and investment facilitation, with the objective of helping businesses really achieve growth, in terms of revenue, in terms of sales, and in terms of returns, as well as help increase their social and environmental impact. So speaking specifically about the Southern and Central Regional Hub, we operate in 12 countries. These are the countries shown on the slide, with the light blue shading. Our goal, over the next couple of years as the Southern and Central Regional Hub is to support at least 30 SMEs, by providing technical assistance to improve their investment readiness and help them scale, or by providing, transaction advisory services. So here the brokering unit sort of plays an intermediary role between the capital providers and the capital seekers, which are the innovators. And this, would ultimately translate into helping deploy about $7.5 million into highly scalable businesses. Another thing that we're keen on, and as part of the mission of the program, is to incorporate cross-cutting themes in these investments. So we're looking to incorporate gender equality, environmental sustainability, and economic mobility for the low-income segments or the best of the pyramid. And this would also translate into supporting innovators reach over 1 million smallholder farmers, with about 25% of them being women. Let us now talk a little bit more about the brokering unit, and which is essentially the investment facilitation team of the hub, and how we sort of fit into the program. So in addition to coordinating connections, between the capital seekers, which are the innovators, and the capital providers, which are you, the investors, we offer tailored investment advisory support. And we see our value add here, to investors, in that would help you reduce your upfront costs when it comes to supporting you with deal origination, and would also help, mitigate information asymmetries between, the capital providers and the capital seekers. And Chris will talk, a little bit more about this as we go along. So in line with what I've just said, the brokering unit sort of has four broad mandates. The first one is to mobilize private capital for selected, SMEs. And to just add a bit of context there, over the next couple of months, we are looking to build a pipeline of companies, which are a good fit from the perspective of the program's mission, as well as them being commercially viable. So the brokering unit will be working very, very closely with the technical assistance team, who provide technical assistance to the selected innovators. And this technical assistance is sort of tailored to help the innovators become more attractive with regards to investments. And once we as the brokering unit feel that the innovator, or rather the SME, is ready to meet with investors, we then come in and provide end-to-end transaction advisory services. So this will include things like helping structure a financing solution, developing investor materials such as teasers, information memorandums, and helping with the negotiations and the like. Moving on to the next mandate, which is to promote and mobilize ESG-focused investments. So again, here we're making sure that across our investments, we're ensuring that we integrate, things such as gender mainstreaming, impact for the base of the pyramid, and environmental sustainability into the investment, decision-making process. We see our third mandate as being helping reduce barriers to investments for the SMEs sort of operating the water, energy, and food nexus. So while working with the enabling environment unit, we sort of aim to understand the macro and the regulatory environment in geographies where these innovators reside, and also ensuring at the same time that we're applying, cross-cutting themes when making investment decisions. And the last mandate of the brokering unit is to help unlock and improve access to end user financing, mechanisms. So again, when we work with the technical assistance team, who is supporting, the innovators with becoming investment ready, this will include things like helping refine their business plan, helping iron out any underlying challenges in their strategy, market research, or streamlining their HR. So on the other hand, we're also, looking to support these companies with developing or refining those same business models, but so that they could incorporate, end user, financing mechanisms into them. And we're helping them think around what those products could look like in the long term. So to sort of wrap up this section, I would like to mention that that we will be doing a solicitation early next year to grow our current pipeline of businesses. So we intend to have a minimum, of 30 carefully vetted, innovators. These are companies that are generally well established with a proven track record and are highly scalable, from an impact and commercial perspective. and not what maybe termed as early stage or rather incubator stage or R&D phase organizations. So we're looking to work with companies that are are at least ready to meet investors. I do mention this because if you affiliate with a program through this EOI and plan to work with us for the rest of the program, you will be getting access to this growing pipeline of such companies with at least commercial or macro level due diligence completed before we share them with you for your consideration. So I will now pass it on to Chris to run us through how the investor partners can get involved in the program and help the SMEs achieve scale and impact.
Thank you, Oleli. So as Oleli has kept mentioning throughout the presentation so far, the main goal of the brokering unit is to facilitate access to for the innovators to capital. And this is where the solicitation comes in. And we have 4 main objectives here. As you can see on the slide there, first one is to identify the potential investment partners, namely you guys. And then secondly, define the process of how we can get you guys onboarded and start working with you. Number 3 then is to actually get into the brass tacks and catalyze and get into the discussion about the investments themselves. So the goal here is to catalyze the commercial investment to allow the innovators to achieve their strategic goals. And then last but not least is to make sure that we're incorporating this cross-cutting themes such as gender mainstreaming, the base of the pyramid, and environmental sustainability into the investment decisions. So tactically, what does that mean for you? So on the first objective, we're looking to identify, obviously a broad range of capital providers who may be interested in investing in these regional innovators. So here we include commercial investors or return first investors who have, obligations to limited partners, impact-oriented investors who have, probably a different profile and are willing to take less returns for greater impact, traditional lenders and debt providers, and blended finance providers such as development institutions across the spectrum. It's important to note here that if you're a capital provider who's looking to respond to this solicitation, this does not oblige you to commit any capital to the program. All we're asking for is that you consider deploying into these opportunities that are interesting to you after the origination and appropriate due diligence is done. So the second objective, onboarding investors. So here we will be adding the investors who are interested in a database, which then will lead to granting access to our pipeline, which, as already mentioned, has been vetted and preliminary due diligence done on them. And you will be then receiving regular updates on the pipeline companies in the form of one-pages or teaser documents. And every time we come across any new interesting opportunity, you'll be alerted to that one. So as once again, repeating the theme, these are opportunities that we believe will be ready for investment as opposed to early stage companies. And the goal, once again, is to collaboratively review approaches that will allow us to deploy the maximum amount of capital depending on the risk appetite, the geographical mandates of the 12 countries, and the impact potential. So once again, the structure here could range from equity, debt, mezzanine, and even blended finance solutions. And all these, of course, are case specific. And once again, it bears repeating the fact that we're looking to have an impact, a greater impact on the social and environmental side. So incorporating gender mainstreaming and the base of the pyramid impact and environmental sustainability is very important to us when considering the investment decision making. So on the next slide, as we've mentioned throughout the presentation so far, one of our main goals is to reduce the transaction friction that usually hinders or slows down many transactions. So this means that we get involved throughout the process, all the way from origination through to the value realization side. And we do this by removing or reducing the barriers to a successful completion of a transaction. So, for example, we're integral in the selection of the innovators that the hub will be working with, and our focus when we're selecting these innovators is as much on investability as it is on the impact side. So when we're looking at the broad range of innovators, we work closely with the technical assistance unit and the enabling side, enabling environment units to identify what technical assistance will be needed to get these innovators to increase the investment readiness. So, from our perspective, we try to include what investors will be looking at from the company perspective when we're selecting the innovators. So we also help with the capital structure, right? So we look at the ideal capital structure for each individual innovators, and we help those companies come up with the necessary structures, such as the financial model, a pitch deck, or investor teaser information memoranda, so that way we can help the companies and the investors get to that point of discussing concrete deals much faster than they would normally. And we stay with the deal throughout. So, it's not like, we're simply matchmakers and we bring the two parties together and then we step aside. We stay with the deal throughout and work with investors as neutral intermediaries, So we help with the due diligence and negotiations, and then even further to the logistics and administration, which is, we see our role as being your partners throughout the process, as opposed to simply being a light touch matchmaking platform. So, and we have our tremendous investment advisory offering that will be at your disposal should you desire it. So, and just to reiterate, we've done this several times in this market, and we have raised over $1 billion. So we are quite familiar with the challenges and opportunities that exist in this market. Next slide. So in terms of value add that you'll be getting out of, affiliating with the hub, as mentioned earlier, we help you lower the upfront cost by decreasing the sourcing costs. So, we come in with a carefully selected pipeline of these innovative and investment-ready companies. And we also, with the assistance of our technical unit, help close any capability gaps, ranging from creating a business plan to strategy development, human resources, marketing, sales, or product design. So, and in addition to that, we work closely with our colleagues in the enabling environment unit to monitor the macro environment. So, what regulations may need to be changed in order to ensure a successful strategic implementation for these innovators, and identify the hurdles in advance as opposed to encountering them during the transaction journey. So this is all work that you as investors don't have to pay for. It comes in, prepaid from the hub perspective, and the services will be at your disposal. Once again, it's a theme of the information asymmetry, where the investor doesn't have as much information as the innovators, and we see our role as being the neutral intermediary. So we perform an appropriate amount of commercial and financial due diligence, so that we can help the investor have a level of confidence in how investment ready these corporations are, and we help organize data rooms so that when you get into the data room, it's well organized and you can do your analysis much more quickly and more effectively. And most importantly, we'll have direct access to the management teams, which means over time we'll have built rapport with them, so that we can reduce that initial awkwardness and trust issues that usually come up, when first the investors and the capital seekers get together to ensure that, once again, our goal here is to move the transactions faster and successfully through the pipeline. Additionally, we also provide de-risking mechanism and technical assistance. So we can crowd in as co-investors in blended finance solutions. So, for example, if you're a lender and an impact investor, but you still can't get comfortable with certain deals, and you'd really like to have subordinate debt types to be brought in underneath your senior tranche, that's something that we can cast a wide net into our very broad network and look for perhaps guarantee providers that we can bring into the deal. We also have access to special guarantee fund that will be ready next year, so that if there's a case where a grant offering of anywhere between $40,000 to $200,000 US will be effective, we can access that, and that will help with getting the deal over the threshold. So from our perspective, this is a scenario where that is the grant facility is a catalytic instrument to help get the deals done and get us over any of that initial friction that usually comes with many deals. As mentioned in the beginning, we work with a whole host of different donors from different countries who have, huge networks, and they also have resources that are complementary in these regions, and all these resources will be at our disposal and to help once again complete the deals. So when it comes to service providers, a deal usually doesn't have just the investor and the company. We usually have other service providers, legal counsel and other complementary service providers that are required to get a deal over the line. While the broker unit is the lead facilitation entity within the hub, we also work with the other service providers to manage this ecosystem of service providers to investors in order to get the deal completed. What does that mean for you? This means that you are not having to go out there and access and look for the service providers. We help facilitate these and get the necessary capabilities to come to bear for you, and you don't have to provide. We can achieve economies of scale and share best practices across the deals. Next slide, please. So on this slide, I'd like to offer some thoughts around how the broker unit is going to interact with the different potential respondents to this solicitation. So this is meant to be illustrative of the process. So the We4F program is providing pre-funded services free of charge, in this case, transaction advisory and technical assistance. We, as the broking unit, we're looking to affect the outcome at the deal level. So this is the orange dotted line, and centered on direct investments. On the left-hand side, there's a whole wide range of types of investors, and there may be some categories that may be, this is not comprehensive. But the idea is that we would work directly with these capital providers, whether they're commercial investors, impacts, first lenders or donors, and so we'll work on creating, on structuring so that as part of the blended finance solution, if there's capital that's coming from an organization into this, the commercial investor, we can assist with the structuring of the financial solution. So we see ourselves as experts and entities that will help structure and bring forth our knowledge of the market, as well as the deals that have the structure that has been successful in this region to bear to help you get comfortable and have access to the innovators. Next slide. So, we've mentioned blended finance, and our focus is on, we look at a hub as a blended finance solution, and what we mean by that is that we provide all these advisory services, the transactions advisory services, the technical assistance, the due diligence assistance. The whole goal is to increase the investment readiness of these innovators. And what we want to do is make it as easy as possible for you, the investors, to feel comfortable enough to be able to lean into and invest in these companies and these organizations that we believe are exciting and ready for investment and poised to have a tremendous amount of impact in the water and energy and food field. So what we're, everything is geared towards reducing the risk for you as an investor, giving you access to information that, and getting it to you faster so that, when you're making decisions on investments, you have a sense of, you have a comfort sense with these innovators, and that they're ready to accept investments, and that they have a exciting future and a great impact story to tell. So on this slide, I just want to touch briefly on what our organic blended finance capabilities are. So what we're calling, in our parlance, investment matching capital. So we have, as I mentioned earlier, a grant funding at our disposal that we can deploy these funds at our discretion directly into the deals. We're flexible when it comes to deploying the funds into a deal, and by flexible here we mean that there are no requirements for a broad solicitation process. So we can be quite agile in reacting. So if there's a case where grant funding, as I said before, between $40,000 and $200,000 makes a difference in terms of the use of proceeds, we can provide that capital to help catalyze the investment. So once again, I cannot repeat this enough. Our goal here is to get deals completed by reducing as many of the hurdles as possible, whether they be macro, micro, or from a structuring and risk assessment point of view. And now back to Olelu, who will take us through the rest of the presentation and highlight how the process is meant to work.
All right, thank you so much, Chris, for that. I will run us through the application process, so the EOI submission process. So here I will talk about the timelines, and the key considerations will be, looking at when evaluating investor applications. So we launched the EOI in November, and we're at a stage where we're sort of soliciting for responses from investors. This will be happening on a rolling basis, so there is no finite, window to apply. So after that, we'll go into reviewing the applications and select a group of investors to be affiliated with the hub. And the result of this would be what would characterize as, the pre-qualification stage. And if you are at the pre-qualification stage, you're receiving regular updates about our pipeline, and these updates are coming to you in form of, in form of teasers or one pages, and we'll be sharing these ones every time we come across an interesting opportunity, right? So here it's very important to note that, we will have built a very strong relationship with the companies, the innovators, and assessed that they are ready for investment before we share the opportunities with you. Moving on to the next slide. Here we are sort of talking about the content for sort of required content for the EOI. So the offer overview is basically information about your company, describing what your organization does. Just this may include something like the name of the company and a summary of your services. The authorized point of contact with a person that would be a person that would be in touch with initially. It doesn't have to be a person that would eventually end up working with on a deal. Just an initial point of contact to sort of help us get set up. Capacity for making or catalyzing potential investments. So here, and this is one of the most important things, but we're very cognizant of the fact that we don't want to make it very, very burdensome to you. We want to make this easy and something that you'd be excited to do. So here we just like asking for information, around your preferred ticket size, your investment lanes, your preferred instrument, debt, equity, mezzanine, and your geographical focus. And if you're willing to disclose information like targeted returns, we'll be happy to receive that as well. Also, if you're an investor and you're willing to, if you're a debt provider or a lender that is willing to provide information around your the interest rates that you might pursue, would be happy to receive that as well. So again, the goal here on point number 3 is to understand fit, and make sure that we're mutually aligned. Point number 4 is, I should rush to mention that this is not mandatory, it's an optional part. So a cover statement that could be shared with us does not have to be long. So if you do have materials that are already prepared, things like an overview of your services, a profile of your organization, so please feel free to attach that. Again, this part is not mandatory, so not submitting or sending us this supplementary material is not going to harm your chances of getting affiliated with the hub. So would like to touch a bit also on the investor selection criteria. So here we're going to walk through how we're going to assess, the applications, and we've sort of laid this out, in across 3, broad themes. And essentially what we're just looking to understand is your general lens, any approaches, innovative approaches that you take, to making investment decisions into the agricultural value chain, the energy, water, or agrotech. That would be one of the things we'll be looking for. We also want to know that you're willing to be a part of, in what we hope, to be a very robust and multi-year relationship with the hub and our community and our ecosystems in general. And lastly, there's some fine print at the bottom of the slide. So we're requesting that you send through the applications in English. And secondly, that they be submitted online through the SurveyMonkey platform. And if you cannot access the SurveyMonkey platform for one reason or another, we're happy to jump on a call with you where we could take down your information and have it submitted through the SurveyMonkey platform. So the link to the SurveyMonkey platform is in the EOI, and the email address as well, to where you could send a request for a call to submit your applications, is also in the EOI. I am going to stop here now and invite questions. So this is all we wanted to get through for today, and I hope you found this very interesting and insightful. So I'll pause here and we will take questions.
Thanks very much. Chris and Alelu, that was a wonderful presentation. We have 4 questions. The first one is from FM. Would you like me to read it to you?
Yes, please.
Yes, please.
Yes, please.
So the question from FM is the brokering unit essentially working on behalf of the investor or on behalf of the, I wonder if that was intended to be innovator. I just need to understand which side you're on. And also, could the brokering unit, in theory, end up working for more than one investor looking at the same deal? FM, so, if you need to clarify, your mic is unlocked, but I'll see if Chris can answer.
Yeah, so we are essentially impartial, but we represent the innovator in this case. And our goal, as I mentioned earlier, is to get the innovator access to capital. So we will try to work with as many investors as possible, but from our perspective, we represent the innovator. Does that answer your question?
FM, can you give us a hands up?
Yes, that answers the question. Thank you.
Super. I see you've got another one that's come through. I'd like to read a question from Isona Shibata. What sort of typical deal size do you envisage that the hub will facilitate?
Sorry, I had trouble having a mute. So from our perspective here, as I said, we have a goal of raising a minimum of $7.5 million. So, you know, the deal size here is not really the limiting factor. We try to get as much capital raised as possible. So if we can get more, then we'll be happier. But there isn't a maximum or minimum deal size. Well, obviously we'll not be working on too small of a deal size, but you know, from our perspective, our guiding mandate is to raise a minimum of $7.5 million for the innovators.
Hi, Chris. This is Isona. I asked the question originally. Yeah. Just out of interest, what would be kind of the minimum threshold, and what's the time frame to meet that 7.5 million target?
So I'll answer the first one first. We have 4 years, 4 program years, and so by 2023, 24, I believe. As far as the minimum size, at this point, I don't have a sense of what that threshold is. So I'll get back to you shortly here.
Great, thank you.
Isona, you had 3 questions. Would you like Chris to address the other 2?
I would be very interested to hear if the capital for the blended finance instruments has been secured, or if that's something that you're still developing.
Oh, that has been secured.
Brilliant, thanks.
Chris, can I address another question to you, please?
Absolutely. Go ahead.
Sorry. Will the We4F program only work with investors who have been vetted under this EOI? if a non-vetted investor is willing to invest in an SME, would that still be fine? And that question from FM.
So that would be fine. I think from the solicitation here is meant to drum up interest and to get as broad a spectrum of investors as possible. And that's why we have this solicitation. It's, but if we have a relationship that we can establish, then we'll be willing to work with those investors as well. It's not exclusive to only those investors who have come in through this solicitation. But to reiterate what Aurelio mentioned earlier, it's in your benefit to get into that that database, because then you can get regular updates on all their innovators and any changes and what else is happening with them, as opposed to being outside of that.
Super. Thank you, Chris.
Sorry. Hi, this is Jatin. Chris, slight modification to Chris, what you mentioned. For any investors to get knowledge of the subsequent rounds of investment in the V4F innovators, they would have to have submitted their interest through the formal EOI process. But apart from that, other activities of knowledge networking can be done without an EOI as well, as Chris mentioned.
Thank you, Jatin. For the guests, Jatin is part of our program. So yeah, that answer is coming from the We4F program. Chris, I've got another question from Isona. I just want to make sure that it's shared with everybody, the answer. Isona asks, how will the brokering unit work with complementary initiatives like GET and PFAN? Apologies if those acronyms are incorrect.
Yeah, I actually I get it. Pun not intended. So we are more focused on specific innovators. So we actually have, as we mentioned earlier, the minimum of 30 that we're working with. And so we have our own selection process that we'll go through to select them. So, in this case, there may be opportunities for innovators to access multiple work streams, but then that will depend on the innovators themselves. Hope that answered the question. Okay, I see a question here from Nikita. Let me see if Christina, do you mind reading it out? Because I cannot see it, the entire chat.
Yes, sure. No problem, Chris. Nikita, thank you for your question. When do you expect to have the first cohorts of companies ready for investment? Do you already have a pipeline of pre-screened companies or innovators that will be coming into the program? Great question, Nikita.
Yeah. Yes. So we're in the process of going through the innovators, selecting the first batch of innovators, and that process is scheduled to go through the end of Q2 2022. And at that point, we will start going through the solicitation, the investment process for those. But we also have what are known as legacy innovators. So these are companies that we've worked with in the past under different guises that are more ready for investments. And so if investors are interested in the legacy innovators, then we can start in the process much earlier. But as far as the minimum of 30 companies, then that would be in the Q2, Q3 timeframe. So yes, as Christina mentioned, the applications are being submitted right now, and that process is due to close on the 4th of June or January, and then we'll go through the selection process, and it's scheduled to conclude towards the end of Q2. any other questions? Sorry, I cannot see the chat, so apologies.
Chris, this is one of Zona's earlier questions. I just want to make sure it's addressed. She asks, is capital for first loss and guarantees already secured, or is this part of the solicitation? Apologies if it was already.
She asked that already, and I believe I answered it, but
thank you.
So maybe we can let people ask, open the mic, and if people have other questions, they can ask directly. So then that way we don't have to read back and forth.
Your mics are open. Feel free to raise your hand, and we will we'll see if we can address your question.
Yeah. I'll assume then that means that we do not have any more questions. And as Christina and Olelu mentioned earlier, this recording will be in the presentation as well, right, Christina? Will be available on the We4F website. The video will also be available on YouTube and will be posted on social media, correct?
That's correct, yes. So it'll be on the YouTube channel tomorrow. And we encourage you to visit the website. There's a great deal of content there that speaks to our legacy innovators and some of our other solicitations, like the call for innovations.
So once again, thank you very much for attending, and we look forward to hearing from you. And we very much enjoyed presenting the opportunities that we believe exist in the We4F program. And hopefully you found this educational and informative, and we look forward to hearing from you. Happy holidays.
Thank you, Chris. Let's give it a minute.